Well, hello everybody. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Good afternoon, good evening to you, to those of you in Europe, and good afternoon to those of you in the United States. We're very pleased to be presenting this webinar today on the 21st of July 2016 from Miami. I can tell you down here in Miami the weather is hot. It's a beautiful day in Miami, and we're very pleased to be presenting this webinar online internationally for marine manufacturers. Today we have a really great program prepared for you by Susanna and Julie. We'll be saying more about that in a few seconds' time. Our objective is to provide you with lots of really useful information and takeaways, all of that to help you grow your exports and your international business successfully. Before we get started, one or two words on housekeeping. Do know this webinar is one of a series. All of the webinars are destined to help you grow your exports and business internationally. So if you'd like to know more, go to www.ibtpartners.com/resources and you'll see all of the webinars panning out there really until the end of the year, covering exciting subjects like e-commerce and tariffs and all of the good things to know about going internationally. This webinar will be approximately 30 minutes. Brief introduction from myself, and then I'll be handing over to Susanna, our host and managing the table of contents and the slide deck today, and then of course and most importantly our expert guest speaker introducing the whole program, Julie. Thank you very much indeed, Julie. We will be having 4 polls. The polls today will be all relevant to the subject, that is online internationally for marine manufacturers, and we would ask you to participate. So please, when you see us talking about polls and you see the polls there, grab your mouse and please click away and share information with us. There will be time for questions. The questions will be at the end. So please, you see that question box called questions underneath polls. Start submitting your questions, and do know that if we don't get around to answering your questions during this webinar, at the end of the webinar, we will get back to you afterwards. Also, there is a chat box, and again, please do use it. At the end of this webinar, there will be a brief survey. We have a number of questions lined up for you. We would appreciate your feedback, so please do just stay online and answer that survey. And finally, we're pleased to inform you that this will be sent to you automatically. In fact, it'll come to your email box on Monday. This webinar, the recording and slide deck, will be prepared by our offices, and then it will be sent to you automatically on Monday. So you do not have to take any notes, so all of the information here will be sent to you automatically. So I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce, first of all, Susanna Hardy. Susanna is on the bottom left hand of your screen there, director from Europe. Susanna has a deep background and experience having worked in the United States and in Europe, and therefore in Europe we mean Germany, France and Belgium and the United Kingdom, a very international profile, and has a deep experience in terms of digital, that is online and online internationally. I will just say 1 or 2 words on Julie. Julie, probably most of you already know, and if you don't, I'm saying please do get to know Julie. Julie is the Export Development Director for the National Marine Manufacturers Association. Julie has all sorts of programs that she has developed to help the members of the Marine Manufacturers Association grow their exports. Before joining the NMMA, Julie was the International Trade Specialist with the Florida Department of Commerce. It is clear Julie has a huge international background and experience and is an enormous asset to the NMMA in its international programs. 2 words on IBT Partners. We're very pleased to be invited today by the NMMA to present on this webinar. IBT is a private company we employ online business developers with offices in the United Kingdom, Germany, France, the US, and China. We've been in business for over 15 years now, and what do? We provide online international services. And what does that mean? we go out there internationally into different markets and we create websites in Chinese or Japanese or in Portuguese or in Spanish. Our core activity is helping companies grow their exports and do that internationally through the use of online. We build international localized websites and we provide all of the online marketing. And this, of course, sits so well alongside today's subject, which is all about exporting for marine manufacturers. And one of the routes to that market, of course, is let's talk about online. And that is really the subject. So that's the introduction on IBT Partners. And as we move along to the next slide, we can continue to talk about the programs that IBT Partners is going to be working with the NMMA. So one word on the NMMA. I'm not going to take long here because most of you know already the NMMA, the United States leading trade association representing boat, marine engine and accessory manufacturers. The number of members here who have support and help in their internationalization, they've got huge export development programs designed to help their members grow their export business. Now with that, I know Julie's going to say a lot more, and I'm going to hand over, I believe, to Susanna, who will be taking us to the next slide. Susanna, onto the next slide, which I think will be the table of contents. And if we have the table of contents, then we'll be able to talk you through
Thank you very much, John. That was a great introduction, and I'm very pleased to be here today together with Julie to talk about. Thank you very much, John. I hope everyone can hear us. Indeed, we're very pleased to be here and talk about the online help that we can give to marine manufacturers and what that actually means, and also about the NMMA. Now, first, I think we're going to talk a little bit about sort of what the NMMA can bring in terms of export development. After that, I'm going to turn over to John to talk a bit about website localization and what that really means, and we're going to give you some practical, pragmatic help in terms of some of the core concerns that we have found that marine manufacturers often have when they get into international markets and exporting. As John said, there is a question box. We really welcome you to add your questions and put things in there, and we look forward to trying to help you on that. And also, as John said, you can sit back, relax. You don't even have to take notes. We will be sending you the recording on Friday of this week. So just to say, we're very happy to be here with the NMMA, and one of the points that I wanted to make really was that we know the NMMA members are internationally oriented and that they do online marketing and social media. This is an excerpt from a survey undertaken by Julie earlier this year, which really just shows, just 3/4 of you are actively involved in international trade shows, and that 2/3 of you do a lot of online and social media, and that's really fantastic. So that's why we thought that today's subject matter would be particularly interesting for you. And without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Julie to talk to you more about some of the export initiatives.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, John, and welcome everyone to the webinar. I joined the NMMA 4 years ago to manage our association's export development program. As a component of this program, we work to educate our membership regarding the value and importance of exporting through, among other things, webinars such as this one today, in addition to the other programs that are noted on the slide in front of you. The core of our association's export development efforts focus primarily, however, on mounting U.S. pavilions at key international boat shows. Pairing that with a strong online presence is an equation for success. And we also host global business-to-business buyers from around the world to come to the Miami Boat Show. These are some of the main initiatives that we work on. Positioning the NMMA globally as the sourcing destination for U.S.-built boats, related equipment, accessories, and supplies is also a main focus of our program. The messaging of by quality, by experience, by American is used in conjunction with all of our overseas activities and in conjunction with our USA pavilions at international shows. The purpose of this branding is essentially to channel global buyers to purchase from NMMA members. Very quickly, I'd like to share with you our upcoming events for the next 12 months. Some of these activities are organized in coordination with our strategic partners at the U.S. Department of Commerce. While the exhibitor opportunities pertain mainly to manufacturers and boat builders, if any of you on the call are service providers, we do also offer sponsorship opportunities so that you can be sure to benefit from the credibility and reputation of the NMMA when getting involved and looking for exposure in these international markets. If you're interested in learning more about any of these specific events, please reach out to me directly. I'll provide my contact details shortly. The NMMA and the U.S. Commercial Service have been partnering for over 4 years now to offer a unified and seamless support for any and all U.S. businesses in the recreational boating industry. One of the resources that we've partnered on is this Pleasure Boat Resource Guide that's shown on the slide. This is a handy reference book that includes market reports on more than 30 countries around the world. If you'd like a complimentary copy mailed to you, please drop me an email after this webinar with your mailing address so we can get that out to you right away. To learn more about anything that I've just mentioned here, please visit our website, nmma.org/international, or simply contact me directly at the details notated on this slide. Thank you, and now I'll pass the controls back over to Susanna so she can begin with the webinar topic for today.
Thank you, Julie. That was great. That was really interesting and great to have those details for your contacts as well. Right, I just wanted to say, just sort of getting the ball rolling here, it just seemed to me marine industry means, by definition, that you must be very international. You must be, in the very beginning of it, think internationally. A lot of your customers must be international. After all, you all are about travel and new frontiers and going places. And I was interested to see this latest report that Julie's just mentioned. You know, in the InfoLink and statistical survey that they used, it was just showing that the NMMA members have been actually doing very well. And it's really picked up since, you know, the bottom in sort of 2010. And I saw that for the first 3 months of 2016, demand overall is up 10% for your sector, for your businesses. That's, you know, fantastic. So there's a real underlying strong growth starting to kick in, you know, and coming through as of 2016. Very happy to see that. And with that recovery in the domestic market, we know as well that that's also being driven by exports, and that it's all the more important to seize those international opportunities and grow your businesses outside the USA. So we wanted to also talk then from our point of view, what does it mean to be digital? Here's just an introductory slide that I wanted to set out there for you. And I know the images are very small for you on your screen, but you'll get the information later in any case. But it really sets out for me some of the real essence, the real important part of our business. And that is that the global world, the online world, really is becoming ubiquitous and a major part of the international business world. Now, these images are taken from a report that McKinsey did in March 2016. That just shows the increase in cross-border bandwidth as a measurement of cross-border internet interaction. It's increased by 45 times over the last 10 years, and it's predicted to still increase by another 9 times. Putting that the other way around, and the conclusion that McKinsey draw on is that digital flows are now more important in terms of changes in GDP than the actual trade in manufactured goods, which is just a stunning sort of realization of the power of the internet in today's business world. And just a little note as well, you'll note that in each of those slides, the biggest band, the biggest access, road access as it were, is between North America and Europe. So what does it mean then for our side? Well, I guess we found this quite interesting. Woody Allen sort of saying, 80% of success is just showing up. And that's what we mean by a localized website. It means being there, being in the web, being in the markets. And with that, I'm going to turn back to John to talk you through what we mean about what is a localized website for your business and what can those websites do for you. John?
Sure, thank you very much indeed. I love that slide of Willie Adam, and I think he just does a really good job. So what do we mean by showing up? Showing up is a localized website in your target markets. I guess if we were to try and reverse it, imagine an excellent French company in the marine sector seeking to do business in the United States with a French website localized in France. And they were coming over here to the US. You might suggest to them as one of their starting moves to actually have a website presence adapted for the American market so that their target audience, the users here, will be able to go to find the website firstly and then be able to understand, and the user experience would be a good one. So website localization, as depicted by these images here, is having a country-specific website and international marketing. So that means going after your users in your destination markets in a way that is absolutely super friendly for them, makes it easy for them to find you, come to the website, understand exactly what you're doing. These websites can be transactional or not, and by that we mean today's world is all about e-commerce. It's e-commerce, but it's also mcommerce. That means on mobile devices. So these sites can be transactional or not, depending on your business and the business model. So with that, we'll move to the next slide and continue to talk about what website localization does. It's all about enhancing your brand. It's all about actually creating that international awareness. Now, we might have a very, very, shall we say, strong online presence in some Anglo-Saxon or English-speaking markets, or the US market itself. So US market is very specific. It is actually different from the UK market and again from the Australian market, or those other English-speaking markets. So it's international awareness. It creates local credibility. It creates a level of trust. You're going out there saying, actually, we care about you, destination market. We care about your market sufficiently so that we're going to have an online presence that you can come to, you can understand, you can interface and relate to. When we've done that, it's about international traffic. It's about getting the traffic, the number of visitors, and getting those conversions and engagement so that people will look at your products, look at your services, and engage with them, and ultimately have landing pages so people can come on board and say, hey, I'm interested. We want to talk to you. It's all about search engine optimization, and please do know that search engines differ in so many countries, so many regions. We can come back to that. It's an art in itself. Social media, of course, and then e-commerce. And ultimately, all of this, as Julie was pointing out, and the reason behind all of this is it's all about growing exports and business. It's all about helping the NMMA members grow their businesses internationally, and it helps them recruit distributors, provide some of that linkage with logistics, supporting international trade shows. So there you go. Those are the three, shall we say, key points to take away today. It's your localized websites are all about your brand internationally. It's all about online internationally. For the international traffic, it's all about growing your business. I think actually, therefore, we'll actually have a poll now. Is that correct, Susanna?
I was just going to say, absolutely. Let's do a poll. Let's see how people react to this one.
Please, okay, well, please, can you grab your mouses, and I'm going to launch this poll. And this poll, actually, it says here, it says, do you have localized websites for your export markets? So is the answer yes for all your main export markets, yes only for a few, or are you thinking about it, or is the answer no? I'm very pleased to see that actually it's the second, well, we have 50%, it's changing. 50% are saying yes to a few export markets and 50% are thinking about it. Actually, that's just changed again. It's moving all the time. Some are saying no now. So thank you very much. That's obviously there's a lot of good work to be done. I'm going to close that poll and move on. Thank you. So to continue on the subject here of website localization, there is a little checklist as to exactly what we mean. And again, do know that you'll be getting a copy of this on Monday, but it's all about country-specific content. So if you're going after users in other markets, it's making sure that we get the terminology and the units of measurement and of course the currency right. And all of this is to help them understand that you are after, shall we say, them as a client base and going after them as a market. Country-specific design, we do know that design is important, those home pages adapted to one market or another. And in one it might be Route 66, and the other it might be slightly bendy to a zigzag route to market. Multiple navigational flags are key. It lets your clients, your prospects find you. It lets them know which language that they can easily click to and read. So we do recommend multilingual navigation. And of course, we're talking about geolocation. Now, what is geolocation? It means having those addresses, so that an IP address, if somebody is in Mexico, they can default to a Mexican adapted site, or if they are in Brazil, equally. And it's all about mobile. In today's world, it's about having mobile-friendly designs adapted. We know that there are huge numbers now of people looking at online. They're doing through mobile devices. Content management systems, well, that's some of the nuts and bolts behind it. There are content management systems which are absolutely adapted to help you have multinational, international websites which are multilingual, customizable, user-friendly, and of course hosting is an issue. It's to be hosted locally so that if somebody is looking at information, they can find you quickly and they can download the information quickly, and this information doesn't have to travel that far. So regulatory, that is of course a big piece of it. In today's online environment, there are issues that do need to be understood and respected: data protection, traceability. But again, all of these are well-trodden routes. You know, these are not issues that you will be encountering alone if you haven't already undertaken it. Well-trodden routes with many service suppliers to help you. Domain names, we'll come back to that in a short while, but domain names, it's all about having the domains locally, because we know that in today's market, in the US, companies tend to use .com, but in the United Kingdom, we use .co.uk, or in Germany, .de, in Europe there's .eu. So do understand the issues of domains. A strong recommendation and a little takeaway for this webinar is please look at your domains for your company. Do you own them? If not, it's worth understanding and grabbing them in case somebody else does. And a huge issue then of social media. Social media, the go-to way for internationalization now, as we saw on the previously mentioned survey that was conducted by the NMMA just 1 month ago. And with that, I'll talk a word or two about international search engines. Search engines are indeed different in your target markets. Google is, of course, extremely strong in Europe, yet it's only 2% in China. Search engines and country-specific and localized. So when you are traveling, and if any of you are going across to some of the trade fairs, for example, in the Netherlands, you will go to Google there and you'll see how very different it is. And when you're traveling next time, please go online, just check out some of the searches that you do, and you'll find the results are very different from search engine to search engine, from country to country. So it's understanding what that is and those implications for your online presence. That was international search engines.
John, can we do a little poll about this one?
Let's
Is that
do
possible?
that. Well, let's grab that. Here we go, launching. There's the poll. Now, please, are your international websites optimized for their target markets? All international websites are optimized. I think when we're talking optimized in terms of search engine optimization of specific skill sets, only some are indeed thinking about it. So optimization there, 50% are saying yes, and 50% are saying that they're thinking about it. Actually, it's just changed again up to 70% thinking about it. Optimization is really just means that that we're understanding each target market and we're doing all of the keyword searches so that it is optimized locally. Thank you very much. I'm closing that poll. Now, just before I move on, I would just like to just flag up Apple. And now, Apple is an interesting company as an example test case here. How many international websites does Apple have? Well, at the last count, just for your information, 108. Obviously, not everybody has the pockets of Apple. Not everybody has the business model of Apple. But what we're trying to say to you is, please do know, Apple have built their online international presence in very recent times, in very recent years, and internationally has secured a net cash, I believe the figure was something 200 billion outside net of the net cash outside the USA, driven by its online presence. So if you are in any of the countries that you see on this particular slide, when you are searching, the Apple you find is your local one, absolutely adapted for your market. We are just advocating here, please do know that online internationally and localization has come of age. It is a very effective way to get online and internationally. You do not have to have 108 sites, but you could have some sites for your main markets and be successful even as Apple has been.
Thank you very much indeed. And indeed, you know, as John said, we as a private company, we really focus more on the small, mid-cap, medium-sized companies. And so I wanted to give you some examples and some examples from our case, from our client base, and show you some of best practices as well. So as John was saying, you know, just to try and illustrate what we mean by localized websites. And these are some of the ones as we do for companies involved in the marine industry. And, you know, so for example, for translations, well, don't just translate the words, translate everything about it. Translate the, you know, so localized means really embedding it in the local culture. So here's some of our best practices and case studies. Now I want to start off with actually this one here as well. A lot of you in the marine manufacturing business rely on distributors internationally as well as domestically. And I presume many of you use your website in your domestic market to help you locate, identify, attract distributors. And we find that you can do a great job getting international distributors via your localized website. And it's as simple as making sure that you've got a big sign on the local website saying, become a distributor. Now, interested? Drop us a line. Give us your contacts. And that works incredibly well. Just as it works in your domestic market, you can use it in your international markets to identify, screen, and attract really good distributors. And the point I think that we've found again and again is that the very best distributors are the ones that find you. They're out looking. They're the most enterprising, the most energetic. They're the ones looking for the great new product. And they're the ones looking, and they found you via your local website. So and then you can partner better as well and use that. And I think we'll get on shortly about that. John, do we have time for a poll now?
Absolutely. Let me just jump on that. Here we go. I'm going to launch this poll. Here we go. Launch. Do you use your international websites to recruit distributors? Well, there you go. That's a great example, great study. International websites are used by many companies for many, many different ways. And one of the key ways is to go out there and say, we're entering the market. We're looking for distributors. And so here you go. Here is the poll. Now tell me, 50%, 33% are saying yes on some. 60% are saying thinking about it. So some of you are out there thinking about it. Without a doubt, one excellent way to identify new distributors in new markets today is put it out there online. You will find all sorts of people coming to you requesting to be distributors, and you can put frequently asked questions out there to make sure that the system is intelligent and selective on the people that are coming through to you. Thank you very much. I'm going to close that poll.
Thanks, John. I also was intrigued and delighted to see how many of you were involved in online marketing, and that is playing a large role, and you're recognizing that in the marine manufacturers. And one of the key things that we do for our clients is enabling them to continue that online marketing and social media through international markets. And this becomes really, really important when you have networks of distributors and when you have international events. And for example, take a boat show, I mean, or a trade show, like the one that Julie was mentioning earlier, or the one coming up in the Netherlands in November. Those are really important events. They cost a lot of money, and optimizing that with local websites and local online marketing has a huge beneficial effect on your trade show results. We've had a lot of case studies and experience with clients, before having a local website and then having the local website and using that, generally speaking, about 6 weeks before the trade show to get the message out, and just pulling in a much larger base of potential candidates and leads from the trade show. And again, this also supports your local distributors who are often working the show with you. And with that, I also want to bring out a point which is about owning and growing your brand, and that comes via the online marketing and via your localized website. But it's really important. This is something that's we touched on briefly before. If you're just starting out on this, one thing you're going to have to look at is whether you own your domain name in your local market, your local export market. And the key for us, the key takeaway is, don't let your distributor own your domain name. You might never get it back. It starts getting really complicated once you get successful. The more successful you get in your international markets, the more you'll want to own your brand. After all, that is your company. So you make sure that you own your brand in wherever it is that you're exporting to, Dubai or France or wherever, Brazil. So important to do that. And your brand grows with you internationally, and it grows and it's controlled all the time by you through your websites and through your international digital presence. And again, John, perhaps we have time for the last poll.
Absolutely. Here we go, poll number 4, and it's launching now. And this one is going to be absolutely targeted for the subject that Susanna's just discussed. Do you own your own domain names in your key export markets? Number 1, yes, we own them all. We own most. Only a few are thinking about it. Domain names is extremely important and going to be increasingly. What do we see? Yes, 50, 60%. 60% are saying yes, but only in a few key markets, and some 40% are saying they're thinking about it. So please, our recommendation is do look at them. As you grow internationally, they do become increasingly important. I'm closing that poll. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I'm going to leave you just with sort of an idea and some of the things that we're seeing very much on the cutting edge, or some of the new things that we're seeing. Obviously, the emergence and growth of e-commerce that we've talked about. And we recognize basically 4 different types, 4 different models for e-commerce. The first being sort of an online e-commerce platform. That could be an easy way. Those are things like Amazon and Alibaba, Zalando, which is a German one. These are big platforms. You can go on there, plug it in. Not always that, so it's really easy, really quick, but there's a lot of cost involved, and there's no brand development. So it's really a first taster, as it were. After that, what we find very often is that people will have e-commerce platforms via their distributor. And that, again, is kind of easy because it's no investment needed, and your distributor takes care of everything. There are some real disadvantages, however, and again, the main disadvantage is that there's no brand development. The audience is limited. You don't control a thing. It's up to your distributor. You're basically handing the lot to your distributor, which means also your brand, your company, to that distributor. So that's going to be thought about. The third one we're seeing is that basically there's a lot of e-commerce solution plugins, and these are kind of like DIY, what I call DIY sites. These are build-it-yourself sites with big, on software platforms like Volusion or Shopify, or even WordPress has one, PrestaShop. And again, it's the investment needed is small. There is some brand development. That's good. You've got to be very involved in the marketing. You've got to know what you're doing. That is a techie's full-time job. And it becomes complicated if you're doing a couple of different markets, like you've got, currencies and tariffs coming in, all kinds of things. And I guess our fourth solution that we're proposing as well is country-specific websites, which you can use as e-commerce platforms, centralizing your orders, using your distributors for order fulfillment for the after-sales service and managing logistics. So that is our classic sort of, you know, in those four models that we see in terms of e-commerce. We do have webinars only on e-commerce, and we can develop those more if that's of interest. But right now, if we have any questions or any time for questions, I realize we're a bit late. John, are there any questions?
There are indeed, and please do know that we'll get back to you to answer questions if we don't address them now today. Over the next days, you will receive inbound emails and responses to questions. There's a question here, actually, which I think I'm going to grab myself. Says that we're a small-sized company, is just wondering which markets to start in and how much that costs. Great question. Let's talk about the start in. I try and give an example of a company in Michigan, that we work with. When they looked at it, where do they start? They had two views on it. Number one was, we're very successful in the following three markets. We know we can do more business in those markets. They went and built their online local presence. They did so with their distributor network, and it has been very, very successful. They took another view at the same time, which is, we have been least successful in another three markets. We have not been able to find and identify distributors and grow our business there. Let's do that as well. The net result of it is that they did had inbound demand for distributors, and they're now actually doing certain amounts of business in those markets. So those might be two rule books as to where you can start. And how much does it cost? Well, it really does depend in terms of the size of the website. Websites can range from a number of pages, 20 to 200 or 2,000 indeed. We see websites of many different sizes and many variations. But let's just say that if your average site was some 50 pages and you were seeking to go into a new market, translated and optimized, you'd probably be in the $15,000 range for fully transactional online site. It can range, it can be from 5 to 15, depending on how the site is structured. So I hope I've answered that question. And I see another one here quickly, but this one I'm going to hand to Susanna, which is, how do you deal with currencies on e-commerce platforms? There you go, Susanna. That sits with your slide about e-commerce.
No, thank you. And it's a great question, because it's really core, and it can be very off-putting when you're looking at international markets. You say, oh, how do I do that? And I think, as I mentioned, in terms of the e-commerce solutions that you can choose from, and the different models that we can suggest to companies looking at internationally, each depends very much on the type of company, on the level of transaction, the size, and all the different parameters. But I think that the key takeaway is there are a lot of existing plugins that you can use for very good currency transaction assistance on an e-commerce platform today. And although each case is individual, and we would have to walk through the client to really figure out how to do that and how it interacts with the local distributor, there are off-the-shelf solutions that you can now apply. I hope that helps, John.
Yep, I would have thought so. And so just to follow on that, there was one related to tariffs. We ship from the US, and we were wondering about tariffs. How do you work out which tariffs through the e-commerce platforms?
That is, again, it's a key question, and it's very topical as well, given what's going on in Europe and the fact that Amazon is now having to push back on some of these things that they did, because they were registering basically in Luxembourg for low value-added tax, or sort of sales tax, and then shipping it to markets with higher tax. And anyway, this is all now crumbling and being investigated and being put on a straighter, more direct channel. For tariffs, again, it depends very much on the individual company and the setup they have with their stock fulfillment, their logistics partners, and so on. But again, there are a lot of different off-the-shelf solutions. A lot of the 3PLs, the third-party logistics partners, are also offering a tariff plug-in for companies going internationally. And again, that can be put and stuck onto an e-commerce platform quite well. So I guess, again, like the currency, the takeaway is each company will have a different solution, but that we can work out with that company, but that it is a well-trodden path. People have done it before. John?
Yeah, indeed, and absolutely, and that's why IBT positions itself to undertake these well-trodden routes. There are solutions that are provided, and indeed, we can help you with the issue related to currencies and tariffs. There's a quick question here on Google Translate for my international sites. Google Translate, there's an interesting one. Certainly, it doesn't take long to set it up, and then people can pull down. Google Translate is fabulous for personal use. We do not recommend it at all for business. A lot of people have looked at it from a business to business point of view or business to consumer. It really doesn't have the functionality. It says what it says. It says that the company is putting up Google Translate, and therefore that is your view of the international user that you're trying to target. It says we don't really respect you sufficiently to go and invest in your market to do something properly. So it is a quick solution, or you might call it a quick dirty solution. Another one, where would you start for international website marketing? Well, indeed, please, what I would say where to start. Webinars, this would probably bring me back. I must say we have to close really this webinar. Thank you very much. But there is a dedicated webinar exactly on that subject. If you could go to www.IBT Partners Resources and look at webinars on demand, there is a webinar called International Website International Website Marketing with an ebook that goes with it. Susanna, Julia, I want to thank you very much indeed for today's webinar. We have to close out there. I want to thank you everybody out there for joining us today. We've hoped that you've enjoyed the webinar. We hope that you have found a lot of useful information, or at least information as a good introduction, because behind it we can dig down into the weeds, into the technical details. Lots of takeaways to help you grow your exports and business internationally. Do know that this will arrive in your email box on Monday, and that this is actually just one in a series of webinars as a part of a Go Global series. When we shut this down now, there is going to be a survey on your screen, so please, if you could take a few moments just to answer the survey. And at which point in time, I just again like to say thank you so much, Julie, for inviting us to do this webinar together with the NMMA. And Susanna, thank you very much indeed for the detailed presentation.
Thank you, John, and thank you to all the exporters out there. Happy exporting.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll close down now. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.